In this session, we want to look at the use of statistics, data, and graphics to aid the storytelling process. And we want to consider the best use of tools to aid analysis and understanding of the game. We are joined by Sebastian. Sebastian is Head of Football Technology and Data at FIFA. And just next to Sebastian is Paul. Paul is Sports Business Director at Genius Sports. And then on the end there, we have Alexander, who is Director of Concepts and Performance at Sky Sports. So clearly what we're talking about now is an extremely visual concept. So we've got a few videos to show. And we're going to start off, if we can please, with Sebastian's video, which is the FIFA video.
For the first time at the World Cup, FIFA is bringing new insights, metrics, and performance data to a worldwide TV audience.
In that video, we've got, what do we have? Penalty reviews, VAR at the World Cup, we're connected ball, goal line technology, recreations of content as well in different environments. How do you choose what to focus on?
It's a very good question. Maybe to begin with, maybe I should say I cannot take credit for all of these projects. These are collaborations with many, many departments within FIFA, the broadcasting department, the media department, the gaming team, refereeing, and so on and so forth. I think it's important to understand that we act as an enabler. We help with the data, and we want to help with technology to improve the game. And we have to identify the problems we want to solve or the areas we want to improve. And most of the time, it's not me or my team picking these topics that we want to do a Roblox implementation or a ref announcement. It's, like I said, a collaboration. If I pick one or two examples that we just seen, the easiest is the goal line technology one. It started almost 14 years ago when we had a goal by Frank Lampard that was not given against Germany, and that was
we remember that very well.
I still believe it was a goal, but it was a very easy problem to fix on paper, and everyone could understand what we were doing. We were building a goal line technology system. It worked. It was accepted, and the development of VAR and semi-automated offside, automated offside, followed the same principles. The only difference is they came, in many cases, with additional problems that had to be solved. Like, how do we make sure we can be transparent? We've heard it a number of times today. We want to have ref cams. We want to open the mic. We want to hear what the referee is saying. Step by step, we're getting closer, and we look at these areas that we can improve. I'm not working for IFAB, I'm working for FIFA, but I'm dealing with the IFAB guys on a daily basis, of course, and we have similar challenges, and we're pushing these topics to improve the game, and that's ultimately what we're doing. And that's the same for the data side. So we identify the problem. In this case, 2018, we've seen that there is a misalignment between what media and broadcast is doing and what the teams are doing. We had complaints from team managers, for example, that data that was presented on official channels was not in line what they have seen on the match. And that was the moment when we decided we're going to focus on data collection. We focus on the single point of truth. And that's how we came to a lot of these use cases that we have seen.
Excellent, thank you. And we will come back to some of the points and some of the concepts that we saw during your video. But we just want to have a look now, if we can, at the Genius video. So if we could start this up, and we're just going to pause this here, Paul, so that you can explain a little bit about what everyone can see on the screen.
Great. Thanks for that, George. I also want to point out that this is a collaboration between ourselves, Genius Sports, Premier League Productions, and other partners as well. So that's definitely what I wanted to point out at the start. So Genius Sports is an enabler as well. Genius Sports works with partners across the world to sort of collect, manage, and distribute and showcase data to the wider world. And I've heard a lot of talk today about this kind of storytelling element, and that's exactly what we're looking to do here. So the kind of key points here, let me just go over here, it's probably easier so I can see the screen. The key points here is like we automate this. So we haven't got a team of people drawing on this on the screen. We've all automate this from start. So we have, for this instance of this stadium, all the Premier League stadiums, we have 20 cameras in and around the stadium that collect all this data in live, real time, validated by FIFA for its accuracy and latency, of course, and in less than a second, around about sort of 600 to 800 milliseconds. So what we're doing here is we're also not only delivering what is just regular sort of tracking data, if you like, so how far a player's ran, those kind of things. We're adding that kind of next layer of context on as well, which is, it's fine knowing, to a certain extent, how far somebody ran, because you can learn something from it, but knowing how far somebody ran to contribute to a team press, how many times that's been done, who's that with, is that with various different players, how close did the press get to the player, is all interesting stuff for, for coaches, for players, for managers. So what we do is we like to tell that deeper story in this particular incarnation of our work that we do. So what you're going to see here is that the main part of the screen is you'll see this. We've been doing this for about 7-8 years across basketball, across NFL, across Premier League and other football properties. As you'll see, because we know where the players are every 25 frames a second, we can put the names above the players' heads. And that shows that confidence in the accuracy of the data, because if we're going to be showing, put a name above a player's head, then we've got to be damn sure that it's the right player in the right position at the right time. So that's the first thing you'll see. The second thing you'll see is other things within the main frame of the video. But again, in conjunction with Premier League Productions and Premier League, is that we wanted to put more and more data, tell more and more stories in this particular production. So we chose to rather than put it on the screen and obscure the actual action, is to put it round the side of the screen as well. So you'll see, it's only a short video, probably I'm talking way too longer than the actual video itself, but you'll see on this video, you'll see little pieces of what goes on. So here, this is the start of the game, as you can see, Liverpool about to kick off. So the first 10 minutes, we didn't want to have like zero values in each of these categories. So we show the seasonal touches. So it gives that kind of context to what happens during the season. Is that good? Is that good in this particular game? So you'll see that. You'll see the bottom bottom of the screen there. You'll see the mini-map. So we can see the coach's strategies developing. And, just as a kind of storytelling point, we can see just from here, we've been staring at it for a couple of minutes, is that, Liverpool have more touch in the final third. Trippier and Botman and Byrne play the ball around at the back. McAllister has a lot of touches for Liverpool, so he drops into the defence to take that, to start that push up the field. So just from those small little data points, we're able to add lots of different things. Fantasy points is something we also add in as well. So not only including here tracking data, we're also including event data and the fantasy data as well. So there's a hell of a lot of work going in here just to deliver what's on screen, to give those kind of numbers. The kind of really cool bit we did here is we applied, and you can't hear it now because I wanted to have the kind of silence, is that we applied commentators to talk over this as well. So not just regular commentators who are doing the regular sort of production. We have sort of two commentators who we talk to before the game, talk to about what they're going to see, talk to them what they're going to experience, so that they can understand and communicate that to the audience as well. Because there's some pretty new concepts on here, like team insensitive or progressive passes or whatever it might be. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an inkling. I mean, this is one sort of incarnation of what we do, because it's because it's all automated. We'll come back to that kind of automated point, is that we could reproduce this 15, 20 times in different languages, in different productions, with flames for kids, or analysis work, or so. There's a great opportunity to take this even further.
And just give us a quick sense of who some of the takers are for this as well.
So a lot of broadcasters around the world. So PLP put this out on alongside the world feed as another opportunity for them, for the broadcasters to take. The last count, I think, was about 25 or 30. So broadcasters right the way across the world. And the idea is that let's put this in the hands of the broadcasters and see, we don't think this will be the end of this won't be the final thing that we do. We'll take parts from it, put it into the regular feed because of the speeds there. So it's very much a sort of an exploration exercise to see what comes next. I think that's kind of one of the themes from today as well.
Fantastic, thanks, Paul. And one of the things that you touched on, Paul, was around fantasy data, and that's something we're going to expand on now if we can. So can we see Alexander's video, please, the Sky Sport video?
Sky Sport Fantasy Konferenz.
Great. So just explain to us what's going on there. What have we just seen?
So what we've seen in the beginning was the feedback from a very dedicated fan group. So what we noticed is if we watched Bundesliga among friends or colleagues, the conversation was more and more about the performance of the team, but increasingly also about player performance. And that was mainly driven by more and more people playing fantasy games on their phone, trading players, and so on. And when we realized that there is a story to tell, we brought that on screen. So in the beginning, what you've seen was some of the feedback that was sent through during the live broadcast from the fans, mainly fantasy managers. And then the second part was really how we implemented it and how we brought together different kind of content pieces. So first of all, people or influencers or hosts who really know the fantasy stuff, then the data, graphics, and then of course the live feed from the Bundesliga coverage.
So is that to serve a new audience, or what's the kind of aim? What's the objective with that particular production?
So I think there are basically two main aims. So the first one was really to get into these stories of how can we tell new stories around player performances. We noticed that somehow now users and players are interested in the left winger of Freiburg or the right back of Wolfsburg. And that was a conversation that was not happening before too much. So we really wanted to address them. We know from the user numbers, Premier League published 11 million fantasy managers worldwide. We've seen in the morning session that also in research the numbers are high. So we really wanted to address this particular user group. We know that for 95% or 90% or wherever of main audiences, this might not be the right format. So this is not the main broadcast. And to acknowledge that, we also had a second aim in terms of innovation. And innovation in this case really meant scalability. So we set ourselves a pretty easy guideline. This needs to be 99% less expensive than our main broadcast. And this is then how we approached it as well. So we were content with the level of quality, but we really wanted to drive a mode that we could scale, that we could do for different kinds of audiences or different kinds of match days. And this is how we got there.
And one of the points that's been touched on already is around the data that is being used to drive what we've just seen. So can you just talk us through some of the sources of data that you've got there?
Yes, so I am aware that I'm in a room full of sport producers and vendors and so on, so I might be a bit of the enfant terrible. So because this was, how can we get that on screen as quick as possible and as lean as possible? So we had sources from a partner, and this is one of the biggest learnings for us. We worked together with DFL, of course, and Kickbase. You see the two hosts, those are Kickbase guys. It's a German, one of the leading fantasy apps. And they provided us, they're working together with Opta in order to get the real-life data from the matches. And then we found an API in order to get their database synced with our database. And yeah, enfant terrible is maybe it was a Google Sheet going back and forth. So redundancy was not the main aim. It was really more how can we get that quick into the production.
And you spoke about the presenters that are involved in that production. So they're helping to provide a layer of explanation and helping to really interpret that data. Sebastian, I wanted to ask you about that issue around kind of interpretation of that data, because you spoke about some of the things that we saw in your video around helping to solve problems, helping with the storytelling process. So how do you approach that particular issue? And I'm thinking in terms of pundits and commentators, when we see, as we did at the World Cup, new elements appear on screen, new phrases that are kind of helping to explain the action.
Yeah, I think our strategy as FIFA has to be a different one than what Alex just explained. When we look at data, it's key for us that we own the data. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects to us. There's a commercial value to data, of course. We have to look at that. So we want to be in control. Another aspect is what you just mentioned, the definitions. We've seen Arsene Wenger in the video in the beginning. He has been heavily involved in the development of what we call the FIFA football language, because we identified that there's different definitions in the market, and there still is. So if I buy an Opta data set or look at the Sportex Solution data set, it's not going to be the same. There's different definitions, the same for FIFA. And right now, it hasn't been really decided which is the correct definition, and that is something that we're looking at with our technical development team to see if we can align within the football world, because it's also not good for us if we have our own language and no one is following it. The idea has to be that the entire football world is following the same, so we can align and we can tell the same story. Because if a player is playing in Spain and another one is playing in England, but the data cannot be compared, that's not going to help anyone. So it's a process we're going through. We're also trying to work with a lot of leagues and experts around the world to agree and align on all of these definitions.
Yeah, so it kind of loops back to the data in a way, and the importance of definitions and really defining what you're talking about.
Exactly. Data is key, and I mean, we talked about a lot of different very interesting use cases today, and for most of them, you need data. Yeah. Almost all of them. The use cases you've seen in my video, in Paul's video, even in Alex's video, it's all data that is being collected. And I see that these different departments, the different worlds in football, they're moving closer together. When we look at data at a FIFA tournament, we need the best possible data for officiating purposes. If we use data for automation of automated offside, semi-automated offside, and the same data can be used for 3D recreation, volumetric tracking, insights. So if we start working together and use these synergies, a lot of use cases will be enabled.
Yeah. And Paul, for the data zone that we saw, I guess that all needs to be pretty self-explanatory, really, for a viewer to be able to get the most from it.
Yeah, it does. I agree. I think the good thing is, though, is that you want to push the boundaries a little bit as well. So it isn't just the same old thing all over, you know. So we want to really take take the viewer on a bit of a journey, really, because they want to understand what the coach feels and what the coach is looking at, and the only way they do that is by giving them something different, something new all the time. I agree with Sebastian. The data is the foundational layer. It's got to be, but it's got to be accurate. I think that's the key. I think as you're driving out there, is that accuracy is absolutely key, because you're talking about officials who are. We've already talked about IFAB a little bit, so we might as well talk about referees as well. They're kind of in the middle. They got to be able to trust that data implicitly, because they're the ones that are kind of officiated off it. So that is a key point. But yeah, for us is that it's always about coming up with new analytics, and we do that with a lot of coaches, a lot of analysts at clubs, because they're the ones that are living it day in, day out. And so if they're living it day in, day out, then the audience will want to understand what's going on, what's in their mind as well, I think.
Something that came up in a panel earlier was the Apple Vision Pro headsets that have been released. And it feels like Apple has kind of reignited this debate around immersive content. Is that the future for what we're looking at and what we're talking about here? Is that really going to help you kind of take it to the next level and maybe aid with that personalization piece that you spoke about?
I believe there's potential. There's huge potential, especially looking at the data we already have. We've done some testing, we've done some trials, and it is possible. I think a lot of work has to be done to make it a product that is acceptable if you're looking for reality, something close to reality. And then, of course, you will have the discussion whether this is competing with the traditional broadcast or not. And then we will talk about rights. We see what some of the other big sports are doing. I think NFL was mentioned earlier, the Nickelodeon implementation, NHL. They're all experimenting with these kinds of technologies, and they're trying to see how far can they push it. without getting into trouble. And that is certainly something where I believe there's potential, and we will see more of that, yes.
Yeah.
I think that's right, and I think you sort of mentioned about personalisation there. For us, that's that kind of key part of it, is that, you know, for many years we've been looking at, you know, I think it was mentioned earlier, the same kind of, you know, broadcast output of, you know, it's been very, very successful. But I think where we want to take it is that we're on this kind of personalisation journey to give the fan exactly what they want. So the everyday person at home can choose what music they listen to, can be offered recommendations for music, and, you know, can go onto various different sites and see adverts pop up that they might be interested in. So I think we you know, that's not happening in football yet. I think that's that kind of next phase now, in that we're hoping to enable. So the first stage is creating, you know, I would say, these data zones, and, you know, maybe there's one, maybe there's 20 different sort of views we can do of each part of the action. The next stage then is putting the control in the hands of the viewer. So the viewer can then, you know, press an iPad and press, okay, I want to see the stats. Okay, I want to see Cristiano Ronaldo's numbers, or it's the last 5 minutes of the game. I literally just want to focus on what's going on the field because this is a really tense moment, so I don't want to see any stats. So I think that's where we're headed to, and I think that's going to be a key next sort of push for us.
And finally, and just quite quickly, because we've only got a couple of minutes left, I'm interested to know how you gather feedback on what you're doing as well. So how do you know that what you're doing is being well received by viewers? Alexander, let's start with you.
So what we've learned is that if we want to address a certain audience, it's really a subset. It was good for us to work with a partner like the Kickbase guys, because they already bring back a community that cares about fantasy football, and they gathered a lot of feedback within their community already, and their fans, they thought it was cool that they saw their hosts on TV. So that was a good channel for us, that they had already built up a community of hundreds of thousands of users, and they were already in an exchange. This was for us, I think, the most important way to get feedback. Otherwise, we got direct feedback during the live broadcast using already traditional hashtags and so on. And of course, we look at the ratings and so on. But we know that this is not the best solution for 95% of the viewers. So pure ratings is not how we measure that. It's rather the passion score within these subsets of fans. And then we worked with a partner to get qualitative and quantitative feedback there.
Fantastic.
I guess we do it based on how many broadcasters take it up and whether they keep going.
Yeah.
That's the kind of key. And then they obviously speak to their viewers who, you know, indicate whether this is good, bad. But we're on a kind of learning curve now to sort of, you know, like I say, we will probably change this 10 times between now and a final product, whatever we get to. Yeah. But yeah, you know, we're in a world now where we get instant sort of feedback via the various social channels. So I think that's always, you know, can be taken with a pinch of salt sometimes, but is real, and it's what viewers are feeling at the time.
Yeah. Sebastian?
Yeah, I fully agree to the instant feedback, and if you're organizing a World Cup, you learn quickly what people think about your product, whether it's social media or anyone else telling you their opinion, and that's fine, but of course that's not going to help you to develop a product that has to be delivered on a World Cup level. So what we're trying to do is also to get in touch with fans. We had a fan panel ahead of the World Cup in Qatar. A small group, of course not representative, but they gave us feedback when we looked at the animation for the semi-automated offside, for example, or some of the enhanced football statistics. So we had these people from all over the world. We gave them a bit of a preview, and they gave us direct feedback on what they think. Do they understand what we're showing them? And that was then used to develop the product.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. Well, look, we're bang on time. So thank you very much for giving up your time and sharing all of that with us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, George.